to start an issue that is current in the world today, and we deal with it almost every day. We hear about it in the news every day, and it started 4,000 years ago. I'll tell you what it is in just a moment. But just before then, please subscribe to this channel, and if you click on the bell down below, you'll get an announcement of when each new video is published, and you can keep up to date with that. We're doing a series on end times prophecy, and I hope that you enjoy it. If you have any comments, put them down below, and I'll get back to you on it. So what's the it? Well, let me tell you, it started with Abraham. 4,000 years ago, it started with his lifetime. The it is the relentless hatred of many of the people of the world against the Jews, and primarily the Arabs. To miss this genesis of anti-Semitism is to get everything else about the Middle East wrong. Unless you understand anti-Semitism and what caused it and why it's so virulent, particularly in the Middle East, if you don't understand that, you'll not understand any of the political things that are going on there today. But let's go back to about 2000 BC. Life in Ur of the Chaldees. Ur was a city located between the Tigris and Euphrates River in the lower Mesopotamian river valley. Around 2000 BC, an Akkadian by the name of Terah moved a few miles north up the valley to the Sumerian city of Ur in the Mesopotamian river's valley. He moved with his family or his clan, however you want to call it. His Sumerian name Terah implied that he was a priest worshiping the primary god of Ur, and that was Nani or Nana or Sin. We know it as the moon god. It was not a goddess, it was a god. The Sumerians, by the way, were not polytheistic as we think of polytheism. They were henotheistic. In other words, they believed there's many gods, but they had one god they were particularly focused on. And that's what henotheists are. And most people we think of as polytheists are actually henotheists. And that's the right spelling up above. Terah and his family, including his son Abraham, or Abram at that time, they moved further up because there was encroachments by Elamites and Gudians from across the Zagros Mountains to the east. And they came across into the Fertile Crescent and transplanted themselves there. Now let's start in with the real issue that we're dealing with. Not that the Akkadians, a Semitic group, were moving into a certain area, but that one of the Akkadians was a man named Abram. And God called Abram out of that henotheism or polytheism and wanted him to serve him alone. And Abraham had two sons. One was Ishmael, his firstborn son in a way, unofficially, but he was. And the other was Isaac, his official, chosen firstborn son, the one that God chose and that Abraham chose as a result. Ishmael was the firstborn to Hagar, which was a servant of Abram's wife, Sarah. Ishmael was 14 years old and ready to be, well, if he was Jewish, he'd be bar mitzvahed, but there were no Jews in those days. But he was old enough to be treated as a man and given responsibilities. But at that time, Sarah became pregnant with Isaac. And as a result, Ishmael had to go. Now I want you to turn your Bibles to Genesis chapter 16, verses 7 through 16. Now, Hagar was being so mistreated by Sarah that she ran away. And it says, now the angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, by the spring on the way to shore. And he said, Hagar, Sarah's maid, where have you come from and where are you going? She said, I'm fleeing from the presence of my mistress Sarah. The angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit yourself under her hand. Then the angel of the Lord said to her, I will multiply your descendants exceedingly. Well, there's hundreds of millions of Arabs now who are descendants of her son, Ishmael. And the angel of the Lord said, they will not be able to be counted for multitude. Behold, you are with child, and you shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has heard your affliction. So Ishmael was to be a blessing to Hagar. And if you look at verse 12 of Genesis 16, it says, he shall be a wild man. His hand shall be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And that has been the history of the Arabs since their inception as a cultural stock. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. So he was given a certain place to live, and he was going to be a contentious man. And we'll get into this next time when we deal with the issue of who are the Arabs. And I think you'll be interested in some of the verses of the Bible that specifically pick out the Arabs and describe them to a T, as we would see. But there was another couple of sons. Later on, Isaac, the son of promise, had two sons by his wife Rebekah. One was Esau, the firstborn chronologically, and Jacob, later named Israel. And he was he was the son of promise. Esau also, just like Ishmael, was disenfranchised. Esau, the firstborn of Isaac, was cheated of his birthright by Jacob, a birthright that Esau later despised until it was taken from him. Then he wanted it. And you will see today that Esau's descendants are always looking to take away from Jacob's descendants all the things that belong or were given to Jacob. The intractable problems of the Middle East boil down to a quarrel between two sets of brothers, Isaac and Ishmael, and Jacob and Esau. In order to understand the present, or for that matter the future, with respect to Bible prophecy, we have to look back at the past. And that's 4,000 years ago, not 50 or 60 years ago. In Genesis 27:41 it says, so Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing with which his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand, then I will kill my brother Jacob. And that's been a watchword for Esau's descendants ever since then. May 15, 1948, 5 nations of the descendants of Esau attacked the new country of Israel. On May 14th, 24 hours earlier, David Ben-Gurion had spoken and said, today Israel is a nation. We've got to look back at the beginning to see why this is such a difficult thing for Esau to take, or Esau's descendants. Genesis 25, verse 20 to 23. It says, now Esau pleaded with the Lord for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord granted his plea. And Rebekah his wife conceived. But the children struggled within her. She's having twins. Any mom who has twins will understand what's going on here. And she said, if all is well, why am I like this? So she went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said to her, and I quote, 2 nations are in your womb. 2 peoples shall be separated from your body. One shall be stronger than the other. That will be Jacob. And the older, that's Esau, shall serve the younger, Jacob. What we are seeing is in the awakening of the Arab Muslim world is the continuation of what started in that troubled pregnancy of Rebekah's 4,000 years ago. Esau still wrestles with his brother Jacob. He still accuses him of trickery, theft, treachery, and usurpation. The conflict ceases only after the whole earth is embroiled in a struggle and God himself intervenes. In Genesis 27, verse 38 to 40, Esau asks his father Isaac for a blessing as well. And Esau said to his father, have you only one blessing, my father? Bless me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Then Isaac his father answered and said to him, Behold, your dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth and of the dew of heaven above. In other words, he's going to be out living in tents. He's not going to be living in cities. Then Isaac his father answered and said to him, Behold, your dwelling shall be of the fatness of the earth. And here in verse 40 is the kicker. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. And it shall come to pass when you become restless, which they certainly are now, that you shall break his yoke from your neck. Later on in Ezekiel chapter 35, verses 1 through 9, I won't read it all, but it's God bringing a curse upon the land of Seir, or Mount Seir, which is the land that Esau lived in, just to the east of Israel. And it says, Son of man, set your face against Mount Seir, the land of Esau, and prophesy against it, and say to it, Thus says the Lord God, Behold, O Mount Seir, I am against you. I will stretch out my hand against you, and make you desolate. I shall lay waste your cities, and you shall be desolate, and you shall know that I am the Lord. Verse 5, here's the line. Because you have had an ancient hatred, and have shed the blood of the children of Israel by the power of the sword at the time of their calamity, when their iniquity came to an end. The people just to the east of Israel today have a continuing ancient hatred of Israel. In verse 5, remember that. And you can see other verses like Obadiah 10 through 14. It's one chapter, so it's chapter 1, verses 10 through 14. For violence against your brother Jacob, shame shall cover you, and you shall be cut off forever. One of the things we need to remember is that anti-Semitism is a spiritual issue brought against Israel by Satan. All of the promises of God and all of the dangers with which we now live as a result of the Middle East in turmoil come from Genesis. You cannot understand where we are now at the end of the days until you study how it all started in Genesis. Because of jealousies between two sets of brothers, one chosen by God, one not chosen by God. Because of that, the jealousies built up and have become anti-Semitism. It's not just a political issue. Arabs really do hate the Jews, and there's nothing the Jews can do to change that until God changed the heart of the Arabs. Next week we're going to get into the issue of who are the Arabs. So I encourage you again to subscribe and then click on that bell so you get notification of the next video coming out, because you won't want to miss that one. Who are the Arabs? You'll be surprised. They're talked about in the Bible. They're talked about in Bible prophecy, specifically by name. And yes, you won't find it by looking up in your concordance the word Arab. So until next time, God bless you and keep looking up.